Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for this episode of Ranked. In today's episode, I'll be ranking the Paranormal Activity franchise from my least favorite to favorite film. This was a video idea I actually thought of doing a fair while ago, but I had to put a pin in it because I actually hadn't picked up a copy. Well, not even picked up a copy. I hadn't actually seen the newest Paranormal Activity movie, which was Next of Kin. But since then, I have picked up a copy and checked it out. And it actually wasn't too long ago. I did a review of the first Paranormal Activity movie and said that it would be a franchise I'd like to do a ranking video of soon, so here we are. And it wasn't actually too long before recording this. I was like, oh, do I actually want to do the Paranormal Activity franchise? Because to be completely honest, it's not one I come back to very often, and it has been a while since I've seen some of the movies. The Paranormal Activity franchise is a pretty popular franchise when it comes to mainstream horror. But for me, like I said, it's a bit more hit and miss. It's not one I come back to very often. If you've seen my channel, you guys know my thoughts on paranormal, supernatural, demonic possession movies in general. They're not my favorite when it comes to horror subgenres, but like I said, I brought it up in my review of Paranormal Activity that I was going to do this, so I thought might as well. So 7 movies to go through here, from the first one all the way to the newest being Next of Kin. Not doing any of the spin-offs or fan-made sequels like what's that one, Tokyo Nights or whatever. I'm not doing any of them, just the main franchise films. So let's get into it, ranking the Paranormal Activity franchise. Alright, so obviously starting off my list with my least favorite, coming in at number 7, we have Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension, which I believe is the 6th film in the franchise from memory. I've only seen this movie once, and really I'm not rushing to ever check it out again, honestly. I remember this one being quite bad, and I know most people would probably agree that this is the weakest in the franchise, but to me it's like the weakest by a fair margin as well, like a pretty big step between this one and the next. The tagline for this one is, "For the first time, you will see the activity." And from memory, this definitely is the most like visual, as in there's like portals opening in the walls, and as the title hints, different dimensions and stuff. And I feel like it's just doing too much, especially since it is trying to relate so much to the main storyline and everything going on, where in the main storyline a lot of the scares can be more subtle at times, but this one's just doing too much from memory. Like I said, I haven't seen it in a very long time either, so I'm just going to leave that one there. My least favourite, Ghost Dimensions. This one might be a bit more controversial, but coming in at my number 6 spot, I have Paranormal Activity: The Marked Ones, which is the 5th film in the franchise. I like the story. I don't mind the characters. I really like the... I forget what background our characters are in this one. Like maybe the Latin culture going on in this one. I don't mind that. Just the execution for me is the problem with this one. Like I said, I know this one actually has a fair amount of fans, so I know some people will probably be questioning why it's this low. Like I said, I just feel like it's the execution and how this one comes out showing once it's all said and done. But yeah, my number 6, I'm going to go with Paranormal Activity: The Marked Ones. Alright, so getting to my number 5, and again, might be a little bit controversial, but here I have the OG Paranormal Activity. Now, I'll keep this one brief because, like I said, it wasn't too long ago I did a full-length review of this movie, so go and check it out if you want to know my thoughts on a little bit of a deeper level. But to me, the most interesting thing about this movie is the behind the scenes, the legacy, and the impact that it left on the horror genre in 2007 when it came out. The film itself, it has some things going for it. I like its subtle, somewhat grounded nature and everything, but entertainment-wise, there's not really much going on in this one. It keeps it pretty bare bones, which, like I said, I kind of just gave it points for, but when I really want to be entertained and engaged with a Paranormal Activity movie, there's other ones that I'm going to go to over this one. So my number 5 is the OG. I know a lot of people do give unnecessary hate to this movie. Like, it's not that bad. A lot of people are like, oh, it's way too boring or whatever. I wouldn't say it's boring. I just feel like there's ones that are more entertaining, if that makes sense. So getting to my number 4, I have Paranormal Activity 2, which I feel like is sort of the forgotten child of the franchise, if that makes sense, I feel like most people can agree on what the scariest Paranormal Activity is, which is coming up in my list while I'm not saying it. I feel like most people can agree that the first one is the most simple and Ghost Dimensions is the worst and whatever, but no one ever really talks about 2. I feel like 2 is a good expansion on what's going on in the first movie. Yes, it's a bit more out there and it's going maybe a bit more like full on with what's happening and whatever, but I find it to be entertaining. Like I said, I feel like it's a forgotten one in the franchise, and yeah, it's one that I'm actually kind of keen to come back to, especially after just rewatching the first one not too long ago. Coming in at my number 3 spot, this might surprise people considering it's actually the newest, but here I have Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. My biggest thing, just straight off the bat with this movie, as a negative, I guess, is I just kind of wish it was something else other than Paranormal Activity. Like, I guess, this came out on Paramount Plus. I'm guessing it was Paramount just trying to reboot the franchise and maybe continue on with a series of films if this one was successful. And I actually don't know how successful this movie was. But to me, it just doesn't really feel overly like a Paranormal Activity movie, which can be distracting. But once you take that out of your mind, this movie's actually not too bad. It goes into some very different territories, especially within the third act and the climax and everything. And those are things that I do enjoy about this movie, but like I said, it's very distracting when you're first watching it, expecting maybe a more streamlined continuation of the story or something like that. But I feel like if the Paranormal Activity title was taken off it, this would have been a maybe more well-received movie. But if you haven't checked it out, because I feel like I don't really hear too many people talk about this one, check out Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. So coming up as my second favourite in the Paranormal Activity franchise is another one that might be a little bit more controversial, but for a different reason, because this one's vice versa, one that's not very popular at all, but I have quite high. So here I have Paranormal Activity 4, and let me just quickly explain, because I am aware that this movie is not very good, to be honest. But for me, this one was all about timing and entertainment. So when this one came out, it was very much a talking point between me and my friends and other people in my year level when I was in school. People went to the cinemas to watch it or streamed it online or whatever was going on. And it was just one that forever we were talking about, and we all thought it was the fucking funniest shit ever. Like, we thought the boyfriend was fucking hilarious. The 2 little kids, one name is Hunter, and then I forget the other one's name, Toby, that's right. And oh man, they're just little shits, and fuck, this movie was just so fucking funny to us. Yes, I'll admit, this is not as good of a quality of film as maybe some of the other ones that I've previously done on this list, but like I said, this ranking is personal favourites. This is one I'm entertained by, and I understand that I'm probably more entertained by it than a lot of other people, but it all comes down to personal taste and what you get from it. And like I said, this one just came out at the perfect time. Me and my friends, we just got a kick out of this movie. So my number 2, Paranormal Activity 4. I know a lot of people will disagree. Like, honestly, that's probably the one that I see get the most hate besides Ghost Dimension. But moving on, my number 1, and probably the Paranormal Activity movie that I genuinely feel like is really fucking good, and that's Paranormal Activity 3. I also happen to think it is the scariest. This movie, still now after a handful of times of seeing it, like, it makes me shit bricks. Like, this movie is genuinely scary. It's a good expansion on the story, and it doesn't feel like it comes out of nowhere, because even after rewatching the first movie the other night, Katie's talking about how things were going on when she was a little kid and whatever. Yes, it does feel a bit like, they just so happen to have cameras set up when they were kids as well, but no, I'd feel like it's a good continuation of the story. It makes sense, very scary. This movie's just got a lot going for it that works really, really well. Like I said, I feel like most people can agree it's the scariest. I know a lot of people, this is also their personal favourite. But yeah, I guess I'll leave it there. My number one for the Paranormal Activity franchise is Paranormal Activity 3. Alright, now as usual, when I do these ranking episodes, we'll do a quick little recap. So, my least favourite in the franchise, Paranormal Activity The Ghost Dimension. Like I said, I've only seen it once and it's just poo. Next up is Paranormal Activity The Marked Ones. Like I said, I know that one actually does have fans. The OG, Paranormal Activity. My number 4, Paranormal Activity 2. Like I said, sort of the forgotten stepchild of the franchise. My number 3 might surprise a few people, but Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. Like I said, take the Paranormal Activity name off it. Like, it really does feel like one of those scenarios where they had a script, Paramount bought it and went, let's try and make something from it. Let's try and maybe reboot the Paranormal Activity franchise, see if we can get that money train going again. And yeah, it just feels like it was that sort of case. But you know, take that title off it. It's actually a pretty entertaining and good movie. Number 2, I know a lot of people will disagree, but Paranormal Activity 4. Like I said, just timing with that one, me and my friends got a kick out of it. So yeah. And number 1, like I said, I feel like Paranormal Activity 3 genuinely is the best film in the franchise. Like, a lot of everything going on in this movie just works. So, there we go, guys. If you have seen all of the Paranormal Activity films, or even if you haven't, just maybe put a ranking below of your favourites in the comments. Or even if you just want to do little bullet points, you know, what you think is the scariest, or what you think is the funnest, the worst, you know, go for it like that. I don't really care, but I'll check them out. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Ranked, guys. I appreciate it as always, and I'll see you for another video soon. Peace.